Alright, so I have just made a post on Facebook which is getting viral, and that's about the quantity of cement and then the quantity of sand in the plaster work. Okay, so that video is related to quantity surveying, and that's getting viral. That's why I have just read out some comments where maybe few persons have just commented that the process or maybe the calculation is wrong. That's why I'm bringing this video where I can just you can say justify that the process is okay and there is nothing wrong with the method. Okay, so you have to just focus on the method. Okay, never focus on the digits. Okay, so let's do it, and let's just determine the quantity of cement and then the quantity of sand in the plaster work. Okay, where I have just taken a classroom that is okay, just 20 by 30 classroom, where we have a door right over here. Okay, this drawing is never based on the scale, okay, which is just okay for the purpose of this quantity. Okay, and here we have a window. Okay, so that's gonna be simple. This window is just 4 by 4 feet, and the you can say the door that is actually 4 by 7 feet in the elevation. Okay, this elevation is actually at, you can say, at this position. Okay, so that's AA. That means here in the classroom we have a whiteboard. Okay, just doing it quickly, and here we have the same window. Okay, the height that is actually 10 feet. Okay, now remember the ratio that's given for the plaster. Okay, and we are just asked to determine the quantity of cement and then the quantity of sand. Okay, if the ratio that's 1:3, where 1 means just the, you can say, the ratio of cement, and 3 that's actually 3 times of cement, and that's the sand. Okay, now remember we are asked to determine internal plaster only. Okay, so simple. All right, another thing that's known, which is actually the thickness, that's actually 1 inches. Okay, so this is what we have, and we are asked to determine cement and sand. Okay, let's just do it. It's gonna be so simple. Okay, now the first thing which I need is just to determine the plaster area. Okay, the total area, you can say. So the plaster area, as you can see, we have just asked to determine the internal plaster only. Okay, so the plaster area can be actually just this internal perimeter, you can say, of the room times the height. Okay, so the internal perimeter, which is actually 20, so this time is this side, you can say 20, this one is 30, this one is 20 again, and this one is 30. So you can say the perimeter times the height of the room, which is actually 10 feet. Okay, so that's going to be just, you can say, the plaster area. Okay, remember the perimeter that's actually 20 plus this side, which is 30, plus this one 20, plus this one, which is 30. Okay, so that's actually the perimeter, and times the height, which is actually 10. That means 20 plus 30, which is actually 50, and 50 this one, which is actually 100, times 10, and that's actually 1000 square feet. That's actually the area. Okay, the plaster area. Once you have the plaster area, remember there is actually deduction for the door and for the window. That means we have to determine some deduction. Okay, you can say for the door size, that is actually 4 by 7 feet. Remember, it's over there. We have to just deduct one side of the door because we are just determining the internal plaster. Okay, so that's going to be so simple, which is actually 28 square feet. And then we have window, which is 4 times 4. It's just given over here. Okay, and that's actually 16 square feet. So simple. That means the total deduction, if we add these two deductions, that's actually 54, actually 44. Okay, so simple. So adding these deduction. Now remember the total plaster, you can say the total net plaster area is going to be the total plaster, which is just 1000, and we will just subtract 44. Okay, So we can have just the total net plaster, and that's gonna be actually 956 square feet. Once we have the area, let me just make some rooms for myself. Okay, once we have this area, let me just note the area of plaster, which is actually 956 square feet. Now remember the thickness that's known for the plaster, okay, which is 1 inches. You can say in feet. If you just need to convert the inches into feet, you can just divide that by 12, because 1 feet that is actually 12 inches. Okay, so simple. So in order to determine feet from inches, you have to divide that by 12. Okay, so let's just determine the volume of plaster now. That's gonna be the area of plaster times its thickness. Okay, so simple. So area, that's known, 956 times the thickness, which is actually, you can say 1 inches, okay, or you can say 1 over 12 feet. Okay, so simple. Now as you can see, we have 956 and we will just multiply that with 1 over 12, so we can get the plaster volume, which is actually 79.667 CFT. CFT means just the cubic feet. Okay, CFT means just the cubic feet. Now once we have the volume, and remember this volume means just the wet volume. Okay, the volume over here means the wet volume. We have to determine the dry volume of plaster. Okay, and how? We can just do it by multiplying the wet volume, which is 79.667. We will multiply that with a factor which is actually 1.27. Now in order to determine the dry volume from wet, we have to multiply the wet volume with a factor which is actually 1.27. And that's because we just, you can say, lose, or maybe there are losses in volume once we just add water to the mixture of cement and sand. Okay, because the cement just fills the wires in you can say sand, which decrease the volume of, you can say, equals 27%, and that's in 1 CFT actually 1.27. Okay, I have a detailed video on this. Okay, so you can watch that in order to you can say learn this in detail. Okay, here you have to just learn that in order to determine the dry volume, you have to here in short, in this example, shortly you have to understand that the dry volume can be actually the wet volume times 1.27. Okay, so you can just do it with calculator, and that's actually 1.27. So we can have actually the dry volume equals 101.176 CFT. CFT means just the cubic feet. Now this is what actually we want. Okay, from this we can just determine cement and then sand very easily. Okay, all right, now let me just make some rooms again. All right, so you can say the dry volume, that's now known, which is 101.176 cubic feet. Now remember the ratio, that's just given. Okay, if you remember, that's given the ratio, that is 1:3. Okay, that means the summation can be 4. Okay, now let's just determine cement's quantity. Okay, so cement can be actually the ratio of cement, which is actually 1 here, and we will just divide that by the sum of ratio, which is 4, and then we will multiply this ratio with the dry volume, so that's 101.176. okay, so we're gonna have cement. Okay, let's just divide that by 4, so we can have cement, which is actually 25.294 CFT. Now remember, we always demand you can say cements in bags, not in CFT. That's why we have to just convert this into bags. Okay, you can just divide this by 1.25 to just convert that into bags. Okay, so that's gonna be actually 1.25. that means we have 20.235 bags. Now you may be just asking, and there can be a question, what is 1.25? So 1.25, that is actually CFT of one cement bag. Okay, we're here in Pakistan. Your country's bag volume can be different, so you can use your country's bag volume over here to determine the quantity of, you can say, bags. Okay, so simple. Now let's move ahead for the quantity of sand. Remember, we have the quantity of, you can say, cement, which is 25.294. okay, we can just multiply that with 3, because the quantity of sand is actually 3 times of, you can say, cement. Okay, so 25.294 times 3, and that's gonna be actually 75.882 CFT. Okay, that's just sand, you can say. So simple. This is how you can just determine the quantity of cement and sand for a room. Okay, this is just for the internal.